Hey everyone, I'm sorry for being MIA for the past couple of months. I will be posting again more often, but please bear with me since I do have a job. I do want to thank you guys for all of your support, and I hope you guys enjoy this video of Super Evolution. We see Luo Qian standing in front of the spiders. Liu is trying to take off the webs from the students, and she says that the Skull Widow has eaten up most of the spider demons. The Widow is not only recovering from its injuries, but it's also increasing its strength. We then see Luo Qian starting to float into the air. Zhang is using his power to break the cage that is blocking them from escaping. Some of the students are starting to fight using their powers. They say even though they are terrified, they are still students from the Superhuman Institute, and they refuse to cower in fear and wait for their deaths. We switch back to Luo Qian, and she starts using her ultimate soul art. She unleashes a lightning fury attack which did some damage to the spider. She lands on the ground, but the spider rushes towards her. The spider then uses its blood web attack, which was a mind attack. Luo is hearing the voices of the spider, but she catches on to the idea that it's an illusion. The spider is calling them delicious ants, but Luo says that they aren't ants. The widow continues to talk trash and calls them pests, and they only eat pests. We switched over to Zhang, and he finally broke out of the web cage that was trapping them inside. The students get excited and start to climb out of the web. Zhang tells them to relax and one at a time. Him and Liu see Luo Qian not waking up and think that her soul seems to be hit. They called out her name and then called her name again. Liu is fighting the spider demons while Zhang calls out her name once again. Liu tells Zhang that the web is restoring itself, and if they don't leave, it will be too late. She calls Zhang again and tells him that he is needed to protect the students and they can't stay there. Liu tells him that her soul is being affected and she is the only one who could save herself. They're hoping her willpower is sufficient, but they leave and say sorry while wishing her the best of luck. The web then closes. Luo Qian tells the spider that they aren't pests. She questions why the spider is calling them pests after eating its own kind to heal itself. She calls the humans more virtuous than them. She could sacrifice herself for her friends while the spider eats its own flesh and blood. The spider then says that it was also their choice and they chose to abandon her, and they will continue to smile and live in peace. It tells her that she is trapped and she will be gnawed on by its children, which will leave nothing but bones. Her soul will be trapped in there for eternity and will endure endless cycles of being devoured. Luo tells it that it won't be able to trap her. The spider tells her that for now, she has a strong willpower, but being isolated is humanity's fatal flaw. The spider continues to talk about being isolated, and the time there has been slowed down, so she will have plenty of time to think about it. The widow tells her to dig through her memory and think very carefully. Luo was a genius that had everyone's attention but never felt sincerity. They praised her and flattered her, but they pretended to treat her well, but they kept their distance. They don't feel any affinity towards her, and they think her perfect image is disingenuous. The spider tells her again that time passes slowly here, and she will have plenty of time to think. We then see Ming He is running towards Zhang. He questions if everyone is out and who is still left. Liu tells Ming He that it isn't easy escaping and not to let Luo Qian's sacrifice be in vain. They then say that it's Ming He, and Zhang tells him not to go in there since there is a terrifying Lord rank monster. He says that he hasn't even reached the Sunblaze rank yet, so it will be tough for him to move under its pressure and even use his powers. Zhang tells him that he will be frozen in fear, and Liu tells him that he will be a burden to Luo Qian. He tells them that compared to the pain of losing someone, that kind of fear is nothing. So he heads inside the cage. They both watch Ming He go in. Liu then hears someone asking for a response. It is Commander Liu Lin. and she could hear them loud and clear. Zhang tells Liu Lin about Mio Lan and how she was killed by the Skull Widow. He tells her that Liu got the communicator from her body. The commander pretty much understands what's going on and tells them that the communicator is working from her end. She tells them about how she sent over members of the Dragon Tooth over to their location and he should be arriving soon. Zhang questions what she just said. Liu then asks the commander if it's the Dragon Tooth organization that is even stronger than the instructors they have on the field. She questions who it is since no one has shown up yet besides Ming He. Zhang then thinks to himself if it was Ming He, even though he was just recently enrolled as a student. He thinks there is no way it could be Ming He. See Zhang, you are wrong. He is a member, but you are probably going to assume otherwise because you're just not that guy. And since you're not that guy, Ming He is that guy because he's the main character. So just be your side character self and just relax a little bit. He says that there was no way a recently enrolled student could be part of the prestigious special forces. The commander tells Zhang to please escort the students back to the camping site, which he agrees to. We switched over to Luo Qian and we saw Ming He. He calls her name while he runs towards her. He then quickly jumps towards the spiders that were trying to attack her and kills them. He tells the spiders that they could all go to hell while destroying them. He then switches his attention to the big spider and he uses his mystical art and then punches it, which sends it flying. He tells the spider that if he lays a single finger on her, he will tear it apart. The spider looks damaged and Ming He is running towards it. He uses his violet fist and starts to attack the spider's legs. The spider tries to run away, but Ming He then uses his star-marked galactic fist. He tells the spiders to go to hell and then attacks it. He then walks over to the spider and we see that the spider got smacked up. Out of nowhere, a tiny spider shows up and tries to go over to the big spider. Ming He sees that little spider and then crushes it. He then uses his final strike of the galactic fist and kills it with a meteoric judgment. There is nothing left of the spider and we see a hole in the ground where Ming He striked. Luo Qian then wakes up but falls unconscious again, but luckily Ming He caught her before she fell onto the ground. Ming He calls her name, but Luo Qian is slowly drifting asleep and questions what happened to her. She then sees a bright light with a hand reaching out for hers. She questions who it is and who saved her, but her head also hurts a lot. Ming He is carrying Luo Qian and then we see Instructor Zhu Qi. He tells Ming He that the students have made it back to the camp safely. He says that it's a good thing that he took down the Skull Widow because it could have caused a greater tragedy. Ming He tells Zhu that it was mainly Luo Qian's doing since she mortally wounded the widow and all he did was finish it off. He says that Luo Qian's soul is damaged and it's not looking good. Zhu looks at her and says that they could only hope that she doesn't fall into the depths of her mental abyss. There is a chance that she could be left in this vegetative state for the rest of her life. Ming He says that he believes in her and he also heard her muttering to herself before collapsing. Zhu says that it's good to hear and they should head back to base. Zhu then brings up the commander and asked if she informed him about his second mission. Ming He said that she did tell him about it as they were entering the mountain range. Zhu asked Ming He if anyone saw him fight the widow earlier. Ming He tells him that some people only saw him enter. He asked if something is wrong. Zhu told Ming He that he had his doubts when the commander recommended him to join their team, but now he is glad to have him around. Ming He questions on what Zhu was talking about. Zhu then reintroduces himself as the squad leader of the Dragon Tooth Southern Division. He said that he is fine with him calling him Instructor Zhu Qi. Ming He then questions, but realizes that Zhu is the squad leader. He tells him that as a Dragon Tooth member, they must keep their identities a secret. He then uses Ming He as an example since he is a student of Nandu by day and a Dragon Tooth member at night. Ming He then apologizes for the disrespect. Zhu then asked for forgiveness since he must preserve his strength. He's asking if Ming He could be of assistance even though he has already been exhausting himself left and right. Zhu asked if Ming He is going to hold a grudge against him for preserving his strength until now. Ming He says that Zhu has his own responsibilities and the key is getting that giant centipede so they could escape the mist. They can't expect it to cooperate quietly and he will have to place his faith in Commander Luo Lin. Zhu calls Ming He a sharp one and he also did well. He says that if he exhausts his strength to deal with the Skull Widow, there would be a potential risk later on. The giant centipede has already gone through 2 stages of mutation. First, it was the sewers of Liang, and the second one was the mist of Xishan. By the second evolution, it then reached the level of Lord rank. Ming He says that they can't afford to take any risks. He says that he understands that their search and rescue efforts will be for naught if there was any problem with the plan. He believes in Commander Luo Lin and Zhu's decision making. Zhu smirks and thanks Ming He for his understanding. Ming He with Luo Qian on his back and Zhu are walking along a path. Ming He asked what the second mission is. Zhu replies and tells him that they need to hide the fact that he's part of the Dragon Tooth organization. Ming He questions why he has to hide his identity. He talks about how Dr. Zhao is someone that was part of the outer circle of the heavenly sovereignty. He was trying to use his so-called works to enter faith and gain true recognition from them. Ming He questions the works and they need to do that in order to enter the faith. Zhu tells him that the heavenly sovereignty takes pride in that stuff. He says that since Ming He crossed paths with Dr. Zhao, then he must know how crazy he was. Ming He then questions if there are people like him in the Nandu Institute. Zhu then questions Ming He's thoughts on the current mist calamity. Ming He says that there is no trace of it being man-made. Zhu agrees and tells him that it wasn't caused by a man and it was indeed a natural calamity. He says that if they made good use of the rookie in training, then it would have become a massacre in the cradle of superhumans. He tells Ming He that strong superhumans have strong vigilance, which means that the heavenly sovereignty would have a hard time killing them. If these strong superhumans are nipped while they're still growing, there will be a gap in their resistance forces against the heavenly sovereignty in the next 10 years to come. Every year, the Nandu Institute would send a large number of superhumans into society. As an example, people like Ming He and Luo Qian would be the pillar of humanity in the future. Let's say that Ming He died in the mist calamity, they would have won this round. Ming He then apologizes and says that he hasn't thought so deeply about it. Shu says this is a long war and they were driven to fight because of their survival instincts, while they are driven to fight because they're killing instincts. They can use all sorts of means and humans aren't the only intelligent beings in this war. Ming He says that if someone is truly manipulating this mist calamity behind the scenes, it would be him who would find out who they are. Zhu tells him that they are well hidden. They could be teachers or students or even one of them. He tells Ming He that he would need to be very suspicious of every single person he meets in Nandu Institute. Ming He responds and says that he will. Zhu tells him that his identity as a Dragon Tooth member needs to be kept secret and he can't mention it to anyone, not even Luo Qian. Ming He says alright and tells Zhu that he thinks Luo Qian has been unconscious this whole time, so he doesn't think she saw him. Zhu says that the students and teachers from before also didn't see his battle. He hopes he could bear with it for now and he will be taking the credit for killing the widow and rescuing Luo Qian in Ming He's place. Ming He says that he will comply with the organization's plans. Zhu tells him that he doesn't have to worry and there will also be compensation. Ming He gets excited and questions if it's a cash reward. Zhu says of course, but money is just part of it. We see Ming He and Zhu reconnect with the group. Zhang questions if Ming He is the one who rescued Luo Qian. Ming He tells him that it wasn't him and he only got there and stalled for time. He says that it was Zhu Qi who killed the Skull Widow. Zhang then questions it, but Ming He says that it is true. He was just being impulsive since Luo Qian is his high school classmate. He questions on how he could have defeated the Skull Widow. Liu agrees and says that's what she said. Fang speaks up and says that they thought he was the Dragon Tooth agent. She questions how that could be since the Dragon Tooth is an official organization that consists of the best of the best. Just like her, he just entered the institute. Li wraps his arms around Ming He and says that he doesn't have a single attribute that is compatible with Dragon Tooth. Ming He questions if they all have eggs that were untouched by the rainwater. Li says yes and points to where they are. He said that they are just waiting for the beast to appear. We see Zhu walking towards the edge of the mountain while it starts to shake. The beast is here, and Ming He thinks of the train incident and it being the same thing that stopped it from moving. The entire mountain is shaking, and he calls it a tremendous beast. We see Zhu standing on the edge of the mountain with his arm crossed behind his back. He looks at the bottom and asks if it is here. The beast comes out of the ground soaring into the sky. The giant beast looks down at Zhu while he is looking up at the beast. The beast starts to growl at them. Zhang questions what rank the beast is, and it's even more terrifying than the Skull Widow. Ming He tries to move, but he can't. He questions why he can't move, and it might be because he is afraid. He asked if this is what a lord rank is like, and if it were to attack him, he wouldn't even have the courage to defend himself. Zhu tells the beast that they have been waiting for it for a long time. He then takes off his glasses and calls the beast a beast. Zhu's eyes start to glow. He says upon his soul, he commands it to surrender. The beast roars and tries to come closer to Zhu. Again, Zhu says that he commands it to surrender. The beast then falls onto the mountain and it stops its aggressiveness. Ming He looks with shock on his face and thinks about the ability that Zhu used and questions on if it was mind control. He calls him incredible and says that the beast is near Lord rank and he managed to tame it by force. Ming He then comes running over to Zhu while calling his name. Zhu then calls Ming He's name. He tells him that he will have to grit his teeth and fight for his own survival. Ming He questions why Zhu is suddenly saying all of this. He then turns around and we see him with blood coming down his eyes and nose. He tells Ming He that he at least managed to safeguard the bright lights for the next 10 years with his meteoric self. Ming He sees Zhu and calls his name. Zhu starts to fall back, but Ming He tries to run over to him while calling his name. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys all enjoyed this video.